Well, today would have been a great day for riding, but for family reasons I can't go. So I got to stick around with the pets and everything else. So since I can't ride, I thought I would show you one of my other hobbies, which is skateboard riding. I grew up in Southern California, surfing and skateboarding and wakeboarding and all that kind of stuff. I'm no Tony Hawk, but I like doing it. And so here's an assortment of some of my electric skateboards, and I'm going to take them out and ride them. We're going to talk a little bit about them. I don't see a whole lot of videos about electric skateboards, at least about a variety, and some of these are older ones, so I thought I'd get into it a little bit and make a video in case anybody has an interest. They've come a long way in some respects. So real quickly through this one over here is called the Big Daddy. It's made by Fiik, F-I-I-K. I think they still make them. I think they're about $1,600 if you buy them with a lithium battery. A couple $100 cheaper if you go with a regular liquid cell battery. But I would recommend with all these boards, highly recommend you stick with the lithium. Matter of fact, the newer boards don't even offer any other alternative. It's just lithium or lithium. And when I bought this board, originally did not have the lithium battery. It had the lead battery, and it was much, much heavier with the lead battery. Although we didn't have much of a problem with battery life, because at the time my son was a smaller guy, even with me on it, really, if you charge it, it never went dead throughout the whole day. But these lithium batteries, they just have more punch to them, go a little faster, and are less to deal with. But in any event, these tires I have on it right now are street-centric, and they sell two versions of this board. One's called the Big Daddy, and one's called the Street Surfer. And if basically the same exact boards, except the Street Surfer comes with these street-centric wheels, and the Big Daddy comes with these off-road wheels. And this is how we rode this board for a good while. Then I bought a second set of wheels like this. Usually if I'm around home or we go camping someplace where it's primarily paved roads, these tires work a little bit better. These just, like anything else, they rumble like knobbies on the road. But boy, if you're going to be anywhere where it's a lot of grass or a lot of off-road dirt or even a little bit of sand, powdered sand, this board just kicks it right through all of it. Even with me on it, I'm about 210 pounds, and it just doesn't phase it at all. I'll show you a little bit more later, but this is belt driven. You can see right there, you can see there's a nice motor underneath there and a good belt drive. Only one wheel gets the drive, but doesn't seem to slow this board down at all. And one nice thing about the Fiik is that this controller will work with either one of these boards. So I've got about 3 or 4 controllers, and whenever you turn the controller and the board on, they pair up. So I can use this controller with this board or any controller I have like this, and that works out great. So this board here, the Shorti, has been my go-to board for some time. It's a good street board, very stable. I've got the trucks tightened up pretty good so that I can, whip it around the street. It's not for cutting corners. It's basically for getting from point A to point B. They put in some, I don't know what's the correct term to use, but some wheelchair access on the curbs, and then they put in that yellow stuff with those raised dots that just the boards don't typically like that stuff too much, don't react well. But this board, of course, this board here, you can't even feel it. You just go right over it like it's nothing. You can run over rocks and pebbles, everything. It doesn't phase you. These boards with these kinds of wheels, you want to be a little more careful. But anyway, this board has been great. The battery's insane. I charge it probably about 3 or 4 times a year. And admittedly, I don't ride it every day. I might only ride it a couple times a month, 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 times in a month. And each time I ride it, I may only ride it for a couple miles a shot, but boy, does it go. It's got some battery indicators right there. It tells you how the battery's doing. This one's got the same over here, the Fiik thing. And again, they use common remote control. Then we've got this board, also made by Fiik. By the way, this is a belt drive board, and this here is a belt drive board. I bought this one. This was going to be like a little trick board. I had the trucks loosened up and used to kind of be able to kick it around, little track stuff or whatever. But we've had, unfortunately, nothing but problems with this board. I took it back over and over and over again. There's a buddy of mine that was selling these boards, and they kept saying they were fixing it, then I kept getting it back, and it kept having the same problem. Also, this one has a unique remote control, which just got sticky over the years, so I used a little acetone to get the stickiness off of there. But finally, another buddy of mine, Jay, and thanks to Jay, PCcables.com, if I get a throw out to him, But he took it up there and did some testing, and what we ultimately found out, skipping through all the hamburger, is it must have just had a bad battery in the battery pack. These things have like a bunch of AA batteries all stitched together, and for whatever reason just wasn't good. So we bought another battery pack, or I did, and he was kind enough to put it all in, and I mean, the thing runs like a top now. I mean, it just kills it. It's faster than it ever was. And I've only charged it twice since I've had it back, and it hasn't even come close to going dead. So we're riding. My son actually took it the other day. He's riding it. It's a great riding board. It is. You can see it's about the same size as the Shorti. What's called a Shorti board. It's really not a Shorti board. Kind of a long board. But this one here, the trucks are a little looser, and they're spread out a little further for the board length. And so it's a more maneuverable. And also this one here is a brushless drive motor, so it's more torquey. You know, when you hit it, it goes. It's a little faster top speed. You know, just definitely more sensitive. It probably, if you were going to own a board like this, it would take you probably want to have a little more skill or whatever. However, I will say, and I'll show you this when I ride them, inside the remotes, and I'll show you when I ride them, there's a little switch on all three of these boards, and you can turn them into low speed, medium speed, or high speed. So on this board, on low speed, is like a kind of a slow jogging speed, faster than a walk, slower than a jog, and of course that would be fine. And the medium speed is kind of like a, oh, I don't know, a slow running speed, which if you weren't real skilled, that would work fine. So this last board down here on the line is a new board called a Meepo board. And these boards over here have gotten long in the tooth. They still work great, but they're older, and I just want to see what the new technology would do. One of the new technologies of this board, and I'll show you a little more when I'm riding it, is all three of these other boards are all belt driven. They have a motor. Of course, the bigger board's a pretty good size motor. These other motors down here are about probably the size of two good fists. And belt drive. This one here, the motor's inside the truck. It's extremely quiet, fast board, and it's got settings on it too. You can actually you can adjust the brakes on this board, how hard you want the brakes to hit, and then of course you can adjust the speeds. I think it has like 4. I think it's low, medium, high, and pro mode. And pro mode, I noticed, makes it real torquey too. So I like not having it quite as sensitive. So you roll this on with just this little handle right here, and so as you move it in the pro mode, just a little bit of movement makes it real torquey. So the high mode works good for me on this one instead of the pro mode. The top speed is about the same, but it's just the torquiness. In the pro mode, when you hit it, it goes. It'll throw you around on the board. In the high mode, when you hit it, as long as you stick with it a little bit, it just doesn't hit the torque quite as hard. But again, just built into the trucks, the motor's built into the trucks, and so the board is a little lighter. So the batteries are, in this board we put in, are much smaller and lighter, and they only take up about half the battery box. The battery box size of that can't be changed, but the batteries that are in it are much smaller, yet it's torqueier and the batteries last longer. So enough about the small talk about the boards. Let's take them out for a little bit of a ride. We'll talk about it. it for a good while, more than 5 years, and this is my go-to board for just about everything. It uses kind of a big controller like this with a 9-volt battery in it. Inside here where the battery goes, you can set the speed to low, medium, or high. I think the board will go in reverse, but I'm not sure. But anyway, you pull it to go and then hit the brakes if you want to nudge it forward there. It's a nice big board, and I'll flip it on its side here in a little bit, but this is very rigid. There's no flex to it at all. Now, the bad news is there's no flex to it at all, and that if you want to carve or do things, you really got to muscle into it. Fine. It's kind of more of a cruiser board, big board. The good news though is that when you get up to speeds 20 miles an hour or so, it doesn't ever get the wobbles. It stays nice and steady. I have the trucks fairly tightened down. I mean, certainly get around on it and everything and still have some good fun carving, but for the most part, this is my get from point A to point B. If I'm going down, visit somebody, just gonna go somewhere a half mile, mile and a half, this is the board that I generally have picked up over the years. Lithium battery, got the original lithium battery. Thing never dies. Great board. So here's a view of it on its side. Here's the motor down here. See, big motor, and then the belt system here, and drives just one wheel, which it's fine. You don't feel torque from one side to the other. It's planted real well and feels just like both rear wheels are getting drive. And you can see what I mean when it's rigid. It's the battery box and everything's all set up. Very thick wood. It's not intended to flex. It's a very sturdy board. One other thing about this board, well, two other things actually. It's got this built-in integrated handle, which I love. I mean, makes it real easy to pick up. The other thing I really like about this board, I'm going to show you in just a minute. It has integrated lights, built-in lights. Let me show you that. So the switch is right here, this little white switch. I'm gonna turn it on and then I'm gonna show you the lights. So it's really cool because the lights are integrated in the board. So there's the front LED light, and it really makes you be able to be seen at night. And on the back of the board, you've got this nice LED, red LED, make you be seen from behind. They're actually quite bright at night, and it's really cool because they're built into the board. You don't have to go buy aftermarket accessories. Like I said, this board is over 5 years old. Everything still works fine. Good build quality. It's probably like a generation after the previous board, or the Shorti that I was calling you. I don't know why they call the other board a Shorti. It's about, roughly looks to be about almost 40 inches long. In any event, this Pipe Master is just a little bit shorter. It's got the trucks a little closer to both ends, the front truck especially way out off the front. And it's intended to carve a little bit better. But as I'm going to show you, it's still very rigid, very thick. Inside cup here on the top, you probably can't tell, but this is actually cupped down and actually prevent it from flexing at all. Very thick stuff. Lithium battery. We unfortunately had nothing but problems with this board. Got it, rode it a little bit, and it just kept stopping. Just threw me right off the board once. I was riding it along and it just hit the brakes out of nowhere and tossed me forward, and then it kept doing that, and we had it back in the shop over and over and over again. They could never fix it. And then recently had a buddy of mine who is pretty good at this kind of stuff, and we ultimately deduced. Turned out to be a battery pack though. We got a new battery pack with some really nice Tesla style batteries, and this thing runs as hard as it ever has. I would say it's faster and torqueier than it ever was. But it's a good board to ride. It's really smooth. The wheels are smooth. All right, let's talk about the board for a second. So this is my newest board. Haven't had it that long. Works off this little tiny remote control, and when this thing turns on, it displays how much battery life in the transmitter and the board, and how fast you're going and how many miles you went and all that kind of stuff. This thing is flexible. It's like a bamboo material. So it's good for comfort, but I have found that when you get a little bit of speed up, it causes the wobbles. So if you want to do a little carving, it works well. If you want to cruise at, say, 15 to 20 miles an hour, it works well. You start getting over 20 miles an hour, it gets the wobbles a little bit. Here's the underside of the board. So the interesting part about this board is that down here on the business end of the board, the motor is integrated into the truck. There's no more motor and then a belt turning the drive. And this is all the controller right here. And then down at this end is the battery. So it's a pretty neat little setup. And then I put some, I probably can't see it very well. You can't see it very well, but I put some lights on it. There's a red one on the back and a white one just like it on the front. So that's the Meepo, this is called the NLS Pro, their new one.